Hi, everybody, for Life Lesson Friday on July 21st, 2023. Give yourself some time off. And I'm inspired to talk about this because I have a friend who posted about uh, having to be convinced to take a day off from work by his wife um, on his birthday. And he's an entrepreneur. Um, but, it's. It just makes me laugh because, like, we want to be like we want to be diligent, we want to be productive, we want to be all these things, and we want to work because it's good and it provides for our families and all those things, right? um, but to have to be convinced to take a day off is an indication that your priorities are off, in my opinion. And the reason I say that is because your priorities, and I think this person would say his priorities are God, country, family. Like, work is not one of the top three. And so, why are you having to be convinced to take a day off? Like, so that concerns me, and because I know there's a lot of people out there that don't understand the difference between what your priorities and values are and what you say they are, what you think they are, and what you actually live. And so living out your priorities and your values means that there's things that you're going to put down, that you're going to take time away from, that you're going to, eradicate from your life. Like, there's things that just don't fit into that, to your values, your system, your beliefs. And if they don't, you don't need them, and I have another friend who is completely throwing her life towards her passion and is moving across the country because that's where her values are taking her. She's selling all of her things because her values are telling her she doesn't need stuff. And that her value comes from her relationships and her bonds with people and her ability to help people. And so she doesn't need stuff. And so understanding that difference, but sometimes you have to get to a point where you're giving yourself time off to evaluate where are you, right? And that's one of the things in my second book, No More Sugarcoating, that I talked about. Is it's not just about sugarcoating your diet, but sugarcoating your life. How many of us get stuck in, we have values, we have a system that we believe in, we have all these things that we say are core to us, but we don't live them out because we sugarcoat our lives with what we want to show society and what society thinks we should do and how we should fit in. And quite honestly, it's not about fitting in. You're going to be different. You want to be different. You should be different. We should not all be the same. And while I'm not sitting here saying I'm going to push my values on somebody else, because I'm not going to push my values on somebody else, I'm going to talk about them. I'm going to share them. And if somebody comes in and says, hey, I enjoy that and I align with that, then they're going to talk to me. I had somebody that responded to the YouTube video that I was being interviewed on, and she messaged me through Facebook and was asking me all these questions about how do you do this, how do you do that, how do you do this, how do you do that. And from a practical standpoint, she's much more advanced as far as trying to eat the way that I eat, but she wasn't doing it correctly because she doesn't have the knowledge that I have as far as the background and the nutrition and all of that stuff, because that's not where her passion is. She works in a different area of life, and so she struggled in a couple of areas, and so we were going back and forth, and she was asking me all these questions. And so if you align with someone, then follow them, get their advice, and show your value system to the world, and not in a in your face sort of way, not in a, like, just be who you are. Like, don't sugarcoat yourself. to fit into what society says we should all fit into and what is the norm. There should not be a norm at all, because we're all individual, we're all different, and we should be okay with that. And so giving yourself time off to sit down and think through, what are my values? Okay. And you might already know those, but the next step is my life am I living out my values in my life, right? Can people see them? If you asked somebody, if you emailed 5 people that you think know you pretty well, it's not a family member, 5 people that you interact with, email them and say, hey, what do you think my values are? Right? Like, can you tell me, what do you think the 3 most important things to me are from a value system standpoint? And if they can't nail at least 2 of them and be pretty close on the 3rd, then you're not living your life out the way that you believe you should be. So sometimes taking time away, you have to get away from everything to be able to say and evaluate what's really going on. You know, it's very similar to when you're in a bad relationship with somebody, which a lot of us have been in, a bad relationship with somebody, as far as, you know, we're just dating, and people that your friends are like, why are you dating that person? You're unhappy. That's not, you know, and they can see it from the outside. You can't see it because you're blinded. But if you were to get away from that person for a little bit, you might go, oh, well, now I feel better. Well, now I'm okay. And oftentimes that's what happens when we break up with that person, right? And then you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I was doing this or doing that, or having, you know, I was suffocating. I was not living my values. I was not appreciated. I was all those things that come out when you change that. And it's the same way. It's like we get into a routine, and routines are good, but sometimes we get into a routine that is not under our control. We're just going through the wheels, right? We're just spinning the wheel. And all of a sudden, we're 20 years down the road and we're spinning the wheel and we're like, how did I get here? This isn't what I believe. I'm doing something that I don't value. I'm doing something that's taking, you know, and then we get to a point where, because the guy I was talking about at the very beginning, where he was being forced, as he said, to take a day off. Like, he's been doing that position. I've known him in that position for close to 20 years, you know? And so it's like we get into that system and we forget that the majority of what we want in life is not what we're doing, because we get stuck. And so evaluate what you're doing. Evaluate what you want. And I'm not saying you have to change your career or you have to go through all those things. It's a matter of changing the priorities inside your career, right? It's a matter of saying, no, okay, I value my family. And so that means I'm going to take days off, right? Because quite frankly, I saw another thing. I don't know if you've ever followed him, but Steve Magnus he's a tremendous thought leader, and he's a former cross-country and track coach. He posted, actually, I think it was this morning. It was either this morning or yesterday. He posted that there was a study done in the UK that the average employee works productively for less than 3 hours a day. The other 5 or whatever hours are not productive towards their job function. And so you can't tell me you can't take a day off and make up the time. Like, you can't tell me that, because you can take a day off, make up the time, and not be behind from the next day. Like, because the 3 hours of productivity that you missed out, you can make up for the next day, and you're still not going to be behind because you still got 2 extra hours. So, like, and I know not everybody falls into that scenario, and I mean, I get that, but reality is a lot of us are not productive during the day when we think we are, or, you know, in that work world. And I've been there in previous positions. I've been there where I can look back and go, yeah, you know, I could have been more productive in that spot, or, you know what, I stretched out that project a little longer than it probably should have been. Um, and through no, it wasn't necessarily on purpose. It was just like I look back and go, I could have been more efficient in that way, right? I could have got more things done. In hindsight, it's 2020. But if you go into it in the like, if you're heading into the project, you're heading into the work, you're heading into your life, you're heading into all those things, and you have your values down, and you understand that these are the things that you want, then it becomes very easy to follow that plan. It becomes very easy to live a life that you value and that you get a ton of fulfillment out of. And it becomes very easy to hit your passion. And so don't forget that you need to take your time off, that you need to get away, that you need to do those things because they're good for you, they're good for your family, they're good for your relationships, and they're good for it is good for you to do that, to move towards the things that are going to make you more of who you are for the rest of the world to enjoy. So don't forget to give yourself some time off.